Today's main call is going to be talking about picking the perfect phishing template. But before we do that, let's take a little step back and let's talk about just the importance of phishing. And more importantly, the importance of phishing regularly. I would recommend phishing all of your users every 4 weeks. And then on those off weeks, start focusing your attention on those folks that are your most risky users. That could be your very attacked people. That could be your top clickers. That could be maybe your latent targets, your soft targets, your VIPs. Perhaps, specific departments, right, are showing some kind of deficiency and failing more frequently than other folks in your organization, right? So there's a lot of different ways to also target groups in addition to going after everyone. Now, with that being said, a couple things to kind of talk about, right? Finding your grouping is important, but also understanding why we want to phish so frequently is important. So let's say, as an example, your entire population is extremely well trained, which I hope it is. And that's a whole separate conversation about properly training your end users frequently and using our awareness materials to supplement training and things of that nature. But that said, ideally, your folks are extremely well trained. But at the end of the day, have they actually converted that knowledge, that we'll call it book knowledge for lack of a better word, into something that is muscle memory, right? So when they are actually exposed to a phish, whether it be a simulation or whether it actually be the real thing, do they know how to react appropriately? And that's really where it comes down to, right? Because it doesn't matter how well they trained they are. Do they know how to react when that rubber hits the pavement? And that's why it's so important to phish your end users on a frequent basis. Now, looking at some of the tools you have at your disposal, looking at our primary dashboard here, we can see now, unfortunately, gang, this is my demo dashboard, so there's no data. So I apologize for that, but we can pretend that there is. So we can look at our users never phished, right? That's a huge issue, right? Especially if we have, let's say, 25 or 30% of this population that's never been phished. We want to take action on that. We have our repeat failures, right? These are people that continue to fail phishing simulations. Obviously, we want to get them some training, but we also probably want to phish them more frequently because if they're clicking on a phishing sim, I can guarantee you that they are probably clicking on the real thing. This dashboard also shows you some other great things, right? We can look at our top 50 clickers. Now, in this case, when we're talking about top 50 clickers, it kind of ties into our repeat failures, right? This is looking at those end users who are clicking on phishing simulations. We can also look at failure rate by departments. We can start targeting those departments that are of concern for us. Now, in addition to these widgets that you have here, you can also go into manage widgets and you have other options as well, right? We can look at your top 50 risky users, right? And other things that are going to be coming down the road. So that is one thing that you can leverage to kind of start gaining some insight on where you need to go with your phishing campaigns. Now, I am going to sort of jump out of ZenGuide for half a second, but just to kind of also walk you through selecting and helping guide you to pick these right templates. I'm going to use the TAP dashboard for just a moment. And I know not all of you have this, so I do apologize, but I'm sure if you don't have TAP, you might have something similar to it. So in our TAP dashboard, we are able to see what the top threat objectives are. And in this case, we can see that by far, it's credential theft. So that alone should start tipping me off saying, okay, when I'm looking at selecting a phishing template, what do I want to look at? Probably something aligned with data entry. We can also look at the top threat families, right? And we can see, looking at the top 5, by far, CredPhish is the #1 candidate here. So again, reinforcing the use of data entry, but we don't want to ignore things like malware or even Toad, right? So we want to sort of think strategically how we can incorporate that as we're looking at our templates. The other thing that you might want to start looking at too is down below here. What are the threat types? So in this example, we can see that the attachment threats are 2.6%. So perhaps we may not want to spend as much time on attachment campaigns. We want to spend more time on looking at URL-based templates or even data entry type of templates. But that shouldn't say to ignore our attachment campaigns, right? We want to make sure that we mix that in because we can see that that threat is still in existence. And that's also why it's important to look at all of your different data points frequently because the landscape is constantly changing. And that's also why it's so important to find the right phishing templates because, again, what your folks are being exposed to is going to change often. Let's start looking at how to find the perfect phishing template. For many of you, I would assume that we are used to going over here, clicking on phishing simulations, and clicking on campaign overview, which takes you to this page. And from here, you would go ahead and create a campaign. All right. For those of you who have been with us for a long time, and thank you for that, back in the old Wombat days, this was known as ThreatSim. There's absolutely nothing wrong with creating your campaigns through this tool. However, we've worked very hard to provide all kinds of new features for you to give you greater insight into the templates that you're choosing. So let's move past ThreatSim for a moment and start looking at some additional ways. There are two things that we're going to talk about today, right? The first part of today's conversation is going to be talking about the content library and looking at things such as our filters. The next part of the conversation is going to be looking at our new tool called Pathways. For those of you who are familiar with it, there's been a lot of advancements to the tool over the past year, and there's some really cool things that I want to show you today that are basically brand new. They just came out in early January. So there's going to be some resources for you to use that way as well. So without further ado, folks, let's jump on in. So using our filters, right, we can look at our simulation drop down here. And as we can see, we have our three primary types of attacks. We have our drive-by, which are our malicious URL-based attacks. We have our data entry campaigns. Now, this combines not only the initial template, but it also kind of groups it with its correlating landing page, right? So kind of bundles it together as a single kind of template, right? So you've got the front end as well as the back end. And then, of course, you have our attachment campaigns. Now, attachment campaigns are important to note. If you are interested in doing attachment campaigns, remember there's a little bit of extra safe listing that you might want to look into, but B, you can only do attachment campaigns either through the filters that I'm showing you here or using the traditional tool, the ThreatSim tool. Attachment campaigns, unfortunately, are not currently available in the pathways. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you do want to use an attachment, it will have to be through one of these methods here. I'm going to look at average failure rate. Now, for those of you not familiar with average failure rate, this is basically looking at a specific template, looking at all the users who have been exposed to that template, divided by those that have failed it. That gives you the average failure rate. And for many of us, right, we've always sort of used the average failure rate as a way to determine difficulty for a phishing simulation. And although it is a fine way of doing it, it's not exact. And the problem is the average failure rate is variable. In fact, it can change every week, right? So every week we update this. And the reason why it's variable, right, is because it's looking at the different people that have been exposed to it. And that could change from week to week. So not only could we have a massive increase of people being exposed to that template, but it also depends on who those people are. Are they savvy? Are they gullible, right? And so that is going to change that variable rate or that average failure rate. There's still a place for the average failure rate, but we've come with a new solution for you, which we'll talk about here shortly, on how to find the perfect difficulty level for a phishing template for you. Okay. The next part on here is our teachable moments. So for those of you not familiar with our teachable moments, maybe new to the platform, teachable moments happen when an end user fails a phishing simulation. They are automatically redirected to, for lack of a better word, we'll call it a splash page, right? Or a landing page. And in that, they will get some kind of messaging letting them know that they fell for a phish. Again, we'll dive into it a little bit closer within the tool, but there are two in particular that I will be highlighting today. One is our error message, and number two is our embedded. All right. And we have done a lot of work with our new embedded messages. And for those of you who haven't seen this yet, I think you're going to be very excited. Now, for this demonstration, let's start with a drive-by. So we can just go ahead and click out of this, and we can see of all of our phishing templates, we have a little bit more than 1,600 available to us. And as we can see from the screen here, hopefully it's not too small for you all, we can see that some of these are available in multiple languages, and then some of these are available only in a single language. Some of that may be US English, but it could also be other languages as well. Now, if you are an organization here that needs multiple languages, and let's say you want to choose this props one as an example, because there's 42 languages and all of your languages are covered within it. By the way, you can always click on that to see what languages are available. Just remember that as of today, you're still going to have to create individual phishing campaigns for each language. Now, that may change in the future, but for now, that is something that you have to kind of keep in mind. So with that being said, for me, I'm going to look at just selecting English US just to kind of get rid of any additional clutter. So that's going to give me all my English US templates as well as any of the templates that English would be part of. From this perspective, right, looking at the right-hand side of the filters, we are done. There's nothing else that you need to look at, and we can sort of move on to the left-hand side. So the first one is assignments. Guess what? Good news. We don't have to worry about assignments, right? We can skip on over this because this is just looking at our modules, and this is also looking at our assessments. So what we want to look at now is user profile. And lo and behold, we now have level. Level is now what we want to look at to get a sense of the difficulty of the phishing simulations that we want to send out. Each one of our templates have been dissected. And most of our templates are from real world examples, right? That we've defanged and made into a template for yourself. So we've dissected them and we've identified the specific NIST fish hooks that are built into that template or that comprise that template. And it is the combination of these different NIST fish hooks that determine the level of difficulty for each level that we have here. The exception being the basic one. So for those of you who are looking at doing maybe phishing campaigns for your new hires, basic is where you want to go. It's almost like a training wheels, for lack of a better word, right? So it is kind of training your end users to sort of spot a fish, right? Here's what a fish might look like. And by the way, here's how to report it. So the basic phishing templates here, as you can see, there's only 4 of them for the URL-based ones, are very limited in their functionality, right? It's basically just to train your end users on, what a fish might be, as well as how to report it. So for this demo, let's go a little bit more advanced than basic, and we're going to go ahead and explore our beginner level templates. So now if we click on here, we have a variety of different templates that we can explore. So we started off with 1,600 templates. We're now down to 466. Still quite a few to look at, I admit, right? So there could be other things that we want to do. If we remember, right, we talked not too long ago here, looking at our departments, right? Maybe we want to focus our attention on the departments. So if we go to user profile, we can see that there is role, right? And maybe we want to go after our HR team, right? So for some reason, our HR team seems to be failing phishing simulations at a higher rate, right? So by clicking on this, we're now reducing the number of templates that we have down to 41. So we're getting better, right? We're getting closer. We're getting to something a little bit more manageable, trying to find the right template based on what we're trying to do. The final thing to look at is under topics here. And that is looking at fish hooks, right? And as I already described, this comes from our friends at NIST. So they have determined and identified 16 different fish hooks. So as you're looking at the different intelligence tools that you have, whether they're Proofpoint or another product, you can look at what is attacking you, right? And you can explore these attacks and for yourself identify what type of hooks each one of these templates is using. And so as you're looking at it, right, and many of my customers are actually getting hit currently with credential phish, personalization might be something that we want to look into. So for this demo, I'm going to say, hey, I'm interested in personalization. So now we've now reduced it down to 12, right? And so this is a much easier way for us to be able to find the templates that we're interested in. The final thing that we can do, so let's pretend this isn't 12. Let's pretend this is 46 templates, right? That's still maybe too many for most of us to want to go through. Maybe there's something that we saw in our intelligence stacks, or maybe there's something coming up like a Prime renewal or Prime Day or something like that. And we want to do something based on Amazon as an example, right? So we're going to go ahead and type in a keyword, right? It could be whatever we want. Now, yes, I am cheating, right? Because I do see Amazon right in front of me. So that just happens to be luck there. But we can see that we are able to really narrow it down to that perfect template, right? And so we now have the ability to go in here and take a closer look. And this, my friends, is one of the ways that things really change from using the traditional phishing tool, the threat sim tool, because now you have so many more insights available to you. So first of all, we do have a thumbnail, and a pretty good sized thumbnail, I might add, of what this template looks like. But my old 51-year-old eyes are struggling a little bit to see that. So the nice thing is we can go on and click preview, and we are able to see a much larger version of that specific phish so that we can explore it a little bit further. Perhaps, right, you all are working as part of a team. And for those of you who have been with us for a while, you may be familiar, right? If you wanted to share a template with one of your fellow colleagues to get their opinion, you would have to create a phish and actually send it to them. And that could muck up your metrics, right? And we don't want to do that. So instead, you now have the option to hit share. And all you need to do is hit share link and send this link to your colleagues. And as long as they're an administrator within the ZenGuide platform, it will take them to this page so that they can look at everything that you're seeing. So what else are you getting out of this page that you didn't have before? Well, we talked about phish hooks, and I mentioned, right, that personally, I was interested in personalization. So not only can I see that personalization is part of the phish hook of this specific template, but I can in fact see all of the different types of phish hooks that incorporate this template. And again, as a reminder, it is the combination of these phish hooks that define the level of difficulty. We talked about average failure rate earlier, right? And we still have the average failure rate. But as I mentioned to you before, right, especially if we're comparing ourselves to that average failure rate, do I know that that number's accurate, right? What if this is like a new template and no one's really looked at it, right? Can I really trust it? I don't know. Should I even bother? Well, the answer now is yes, because we've given you some additional metrics to pull from. So what you can pull from here, number one, is we can see that this particular template has been used in 580 campaigns. It's been used by 165 different organizations, and a heck of a lot of people have actually looked at this template, right? They've been exposed to this template. And talking to one of our researchers, they kind of informed me that pretty much anything that has over 1,000 user count to it, you can trust the validity of the failure rate. So now I can look at this with confidence and say, yes, this is probably an accurate failure rate for across the board. However, because we know that a lot of times you're being asked by upper management how you compare to your industry, we're now giving you the average failure rate for your industry. So in addition to the average failure rate, right, we also now allow you to see what the reporting rate is using the report suspicious button, which was formerly known as Phish Alarm. And we can also see what that reporting rate is for our industry, as well as the resilience ratio. So we have all of this knowledge now in front of us that we never had before. So these can help guide you into selecting the right templates. Now, in addition to that, let's do a use case, right? Let's say it is September, right? We know that we have Cybersecurity Awareness Month quickly approaching us. So we know we are going to be so busy during that month. There's no way that I'm going to have time to look up phishing templates to use. So maybe in September, I want to start finding ones that are appropriate. And I really like this one, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add this to my library. Now, within my library, I can add it to my favorites. I can add it to lists that I've already created, or I can create a brand new list. And we will call this Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And we'll go ahead and save this template there. So now I have that saved. Now, the final thing on this page, many of you enjoy customizing our templates. And I will be candid, right? Previously, it was a little challenging when you were customizing our templates. But the good news is we have now improved that. So we now have a cloning function in here. So it allows you to make a perfect copy of this template. You have the ability to do a lot more editing than you did before. You've got more dynamic values that you can leverage. And like as an example, right, this is a sort of a button or a link, right? Maybe I don't want that as a link. Instead, maybe I want to make that into a QR code, right? I can easily do that. I can also customize everything on the back end, right? So we can really make this a truly customizable phishing simulation. Now, another thing that has changed with this is the send test. So in the old tool, right, you could just test it to yourself unless you actually created a fully fleshed out campaign, and then you would have to send it to whomever you wanted to send it to. Now, right, you don't have to create this campaign, right? Instead, what we can sort of do here is hit send, and it'll just send to me. But I also now can add additional recipients. And the nice thing is this isn't going to clog up your metrics. All right. So we'll go ahead and just go ahead and hit send. And then once I've made my customization and I'm happy with this, I can go ahead and hit save. Now, when I get out of this, we can see that this is bringing me into my custom library. And for those of you who have no idea where this is or what this is, right, that is under content, and that's under custom library here. And I got a bunch of stuff in here. So you're like, Brian, you just talked about how like we try to avoid going through a long list of stuff to find it. Well, the good news is we can, right? So we can go and find the type of content we're interested in. So in this case, it's a phishing template. And we can find the template that we're looking at. We can always do a search for the name as well. Now, we can obviously go back into this template if we wanted to and see the data that we were just looking at. But we also have the ability right from here to do further editing of it. We can also clone it, right? So maybe we like that template, but we want to do maybe some slight tweaks for the next time we use it, right? But we don't want to change the original. So we can clone it. And then the final thing that we can do is we can actually go ahead and create the simulation. So we're going to go ahead and, for my sake, we're going to do English US. And then this brings us to the traditional phishing tool, previously, like I said, known as ThreatSim. And this should be familiar for most of us. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this particular page. That said, though, there are a couple things I do want to touch base on. I mentioned to you all about our teachable moments. Now, as good as our teachable moments were in the past, I admit, looking at this one, it had kind of that I gotcha kind of feel, right? And that caused a little fight or flight within a lot of our end users. And unfortunately, many people would not read these, which is, self-defeating, right? We want our end users to read these messages. So we've heard your feedback and we've made some significant changes. So we want to stick with embedded, but in this case, we're going to go to a specific language. So we'll do English US. And then what we want to look at now are these things called auto highlight. With auto highlight, all of these are exactly the same in their functionality. The difference is the way that they look. So as an example, I'm going to go ahead and do ZenGuide. When we look at these, this is kind of the piece that will be different, right? It'll be kind of the design element here. So in this one, as with all of them, it will automatically now embed your company name. Once you've uploaded the logo, which I'll show you where to do that here momentarily, it will automatically upload your company logo. It no longer has that scary, I got you kind of feel, right? It's a nice message for your end users. There's nothing to flee from. And it now embeds that template. So it doesn't matter how many templates you do at a time, right? Now, if you do multiple templates, I of course recommend that you, for equity's sake, find templates that are similar in nature, right? Whether it be similar topics, whether it be similar level of difficulty or average failure rate or any of those kind of things, right? Because we do want our simulations to have some level of equity. But it will recognize whichever template you've sent to me, whether it be one or whether you have it mixed as three, it knows which template I clicked on and it will embed that template here. And then it's going to do a nice overlay of the fish hooks that were wrong with that specific template. So in every aspect, it is truly a teachable moment. Now, with that being said, I do still encourage you to leverage auto enrollment. As good as these new teachable moments are, and we've had very positive feedback, so thank you for all of you who have done that, it is still imperative that we train our end users after failing a phishing simulation. Because again, as I've said earlier today, if they're failing a phishing sim, there is a very good chance that they are clicking on the real thing. Now, previously, right, I mentioned that there were going to be two types of phishing simulations that we talked about. One is the embedded one. The other one is going to be our error messages. And this is something that you may still want to consider using as well. Because basically what this does is it gives you sort of a landing page that shouldn't cause concern from the end user, right? We would use this for what we call a blind fish. This is something that we would recommend doing once a year, maybe every 6 months, to get a sense of what your organization's actual average failure rate is. Because when you get an error message like this, right, your end users are going to look at it and probably not think much of it, right? They're just going to say, oh, whatever I was trying to get, that DoorDash or that Amazon thing, the link is broken. Either I'll try again later or I'm just going to move on. What they're probably not going to do is pop over their cube and tell their neighbors, hey, you know that fish on DoorDash or that email on DoorDash, don't click on it because it's a simulated fish. They have no idea, right? And so that's kind of why you would incorporate these error messages. All right. So that's something to consider. Some other ways to look at templates before we jump into pathways. So let's go back to the global library. There are tools built within the platform to help you out. And the first one that we're going to look at here is our threat alerts. These come out every single week. This, my friends, is where the boogeyman lives. This is what has our researchers and our analysts up at night. So if we go ahead and take a look at one of these, I'll just kind of grab one here. We can see that there is a nice little PDF here that we can email to our end users, right? Explain what it is, explain the attack, remind them to be mindful of their emails. And if they see anything that looks like this, right, they can go ahead and report it, right? However, if we scroll down, we can see that not only does this have suggested training, but it also has a suggested phishing simulation. So if you're looking for a simulation, never fear, right? We have a phishing template already ready for you. So that exists. On a similar note, the other place that you might want to look is our campaigns. So most of you are already familiar with our Cybersecurity Awareness Month campaigns, but we also have our attack spotlights. And our attack spotlights are fully fleshed out campaigns, right? They have awareness materials, they have emails, they have training, they have phishing. So that's the other thing that we want to look at. I look at our attack spotlights as almost like a crystal ball, right? Sometimes we can see things very clear, some things are a little bit fuzzy, but we have an ability to predict things. So for our friends here on the call that are from the US, we know end of March, beginning of April here in the US, there are going to be tax-related phishing scams. So we can go in and we can look at these campaign plans and follow these campaign plans to the letter or follow them to whatever element you want to. We have our emails here, we have our awareness piece, we have our training. But in week 2, we have our phishing simulation, right? And we walk you through setting up that particular phishing simulation. So this is a way for you to get ahead of things because we know that's going to happen. But we also know too, sometimes there are things that are attacking us that aren't predictable, right? Like something like a malicious browser extension or, maybe a malicious use of Screen Connect. So, there are things like that that exist too. So just be mindful of the tools and opportunities that are within the ZenGuide platform. We are going to jump over to pathways. All right. We're going to look at creating a phishing simulation within pathways. All right. So it's very simple, right? All we need to do is add an activity and we're going to click on simulation. Now we're going to give this a name, right? We're going to call this Cybersecurity Awareness Month First Phish. All right, so we have a name. Now, this display name is only for me, right? Now, the send date is whatever date I created this, and it ties into when this pathway was created. And, there's a communication here that's going out on the same day. Now, I probably will add a training or two in here, and then maybe after that training, I will want to then send the phish. So I don't want to send it on the same day. So I can either manually choose a delay here, or I can look at a calendar and say, let's go ahead and send our phish on the 10th. So whatever way you want to do it, you can do it, but it will automatically calculate what that delay is. Now, as this is currently designed, this phishing simulation is going to go out on the 10th of February, and it's going to be executed at 9 a.m. Now, for those of you familiar with the old tool, you had the ability to randomize when these went out. You still do. So instead of sending this out in bulk, instead, we're going to send this out as a batch. So it defaults to 5 days. So we're going to start on the 10th, but then we're going to have 5 days that we can send this out. We can choose the time frame or we can send it at all hours. Now this defaults to Tuesday because the 10th is a Tuesday, but we can select the days that we want this to go ahead and go on out. And then once we're done with this, right, we can review this just to make sure everything looks good. And then we can hit save. So now we're to the step of actually looking at the templates. Now we saved a specific template to a list. So one of the nice benefits of using pathways is we can go into our content library, we can find our list, and we can find our template and go ahead and select it and add it. So now we have our template. And in some ways, maybe we're good to go. However, maybe we want to add additional templates, right? So we can go ahead and add additional templates. So we're going to get rid of this guy, right? And we're going to go and browse our content library, right? And so this is going to show you all of the templates we have available. And this should look familiar, right? There's 1,652. If you remember when we were at the content library, there are also 1,652 drive-by templates or URL-based templates. So you are correct in your assumption. These that you are seeing are all drive-by templates, right? So that is what you have to choose from as of today. So we can also now start choosing some of our filters, right? We can start looking at different things here, right? So again, we can start choosing our language. We could choose our failure rate. We could choose our level, right? And go ahead and apply these. And so again, as with before, right, we're limiting it. We can also, again, as with before, choose a keyword. So we'll just say Amazon as an example here. and again, find something that might be of interest to us. So we'll go ahead and add this. And so now we have two templates, but maybe I just don't know what I want, right? Maybe I'm just really looking for some help, looking for some guidance. The nice thing is we now have this beta, right? So we have this beta AI tool. And so the first thing it's going to do, gang, is it's going to provide you some template recommendations, right? And so if we want to explore these, we can just kind of click on this little box here and we can sort of start going through and taking a look at these different templates. And it also will provide us a recommendation and a reasoning for why this is what it is, right? Once I find one that I'm super interested in, who doesn't want some Amazon holiday PJs? So I'm going to select that one and I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And so once I've clicked on that little blue button, it is now going to add it as one of my templates. So there we go. Successfully saved one template to your pathway. So now we have all three of these, all right? And at this point, we're going to jump down a little bit further here, and we've got our teachable moment. Now, it is defaulting to this 404 error. Again, this is for a blind fish. If we don't want that, no problem, right? We just click on this little blue circle, and it leads you initially to all of our auto highlight ones, which is the ones I recommend. But we can certainly search for other ones as well. And now, the final thing we got to do is select our language. We're going to say English, and we're going to save. And we're off and running, right? We now have our phishing simulation created within Pathways. However, I did mention to you, right, that there was the data entry component. So let's go back and re-explore that. So if we go back and re-explore that, we can see that we have our landing page here. That ties into the data entry. So what we're doing differently here than in the other content library we looked at is we're looking at every single one of our URL templates and allowing you to choose any one that you want, but add a landing page to it. So we're going to go ahead and click on a landing page. And we can see that we have a variety of different landing pages that we can sort of search through. We can also do a search again, right, for keywords. So we'll just do a search for Amazon here. We can see that there's a bunch of different ones that exist. So I'm going to go ahead and click up. Helps if I can spell it correctly. Whoops. So we can go ahead and click on this. We can look at it, preview it, all that. And we will go ahead and hit add. So now what we have is a data entry campaign. So what else is different with Pathways? So when we looked at the old tool through the content library, we noticed that we were able to automatically enroll end users into training. Now, for those of you who have been with us for a while, we know sometimes that's been problematic, right? Because failure was defined by specific things. And so technically failure with like a data entry was when you submitted your credentials and you couldn't really do one or the other. But now, right, we have that capability to add a branch. So this is now a data entry, and now I can do something based on clicked. And I would go in, and then I would say, if they click on this simulation, I want to give them an assignment, right? And this assignment that I'm going to do is going to be based on URL-based content. You now have the ability to do multiple actions, right? So if they just clicked on it, but didn't submit their data, they'll get this training module. If they actually clicked on it and submitted their training, they're going to get this training, which includes not only maybe stuff on URL, but it also includes stuff on data entry. If they reported it, maybe they'll get a communication here that says, hey, great job. You're awesome. Thanks so much for keeping us protected. Keep reporting these. You rock. Or maybe for those people that just totally ignored the email and they shouldn't have, right? Those non-responsive people, we can send out another communication that basically says, hey, listen, we've explained to you the importance of using the report button. Please make sure you report everything, whether it's simulated or real. So there's a lot more action now that can be taken place using Pathways. So, folks, I hope you found today's session of value, looking at different ways to not only leverage the tool to find templates, but also looking at different hidden resources, right? Whether it be our reports, whether it be using our other tools like TAP, or, whether it just be kind of exploring as you want. So, again, I thank you all for our time. And, John, I will hand it.